Well, we should consider that preparing traditional face-to-face classes is usually an hard task for professors, because if you aim at quality teaching, you have to define topics, update any information year by year, skim all those parts that may not be interesting for students, and so on and so forth. So if you teach international politics, as I do, it is impossible to discuss everything in the short duration of a course. When teaching is traditional, the only variable you have to take in consideration is how you want to develop your topics in class. However, if you need to plan a brand new course, both in terms of content and method, the commitment is of course greater and you have more issues to address. In engaged learning, the concept of traditional frontal class is overturned because you have to involve students, that is, encourage their active participation and attendance. So if you have to start from the analysis of concrete cases, as I did in my course, to make more interesting what you discuss and debate with students. This approach of continuous interaction of students with each other and with the professor is really challenging because when you plan your course, you must take in consideration several variables. For example, not just time. For example, attendance. How many students will attend your course? How much they will participate, their different background and their knowledge. All those variables impact on the first one, that is time, because they are related to the ability of your students to interact in class, their willingness to debate and to participate. In addition, I had another problem that has to do with the language. My course was in English and students not that proficient in English may have some problems with active participation and interaction. These are just some examples of incomplete information that you have when you have to plan your course. And if you don't have complete information from the real beginning, this may of course represent a problem for you. The first challenge in engaged learning is therefore planning, which is difficult if you don't have complete information. Well, the need to identify possible stakeholders is crucial in engaged learning. When you plan your course, you must identify the stakeholders who will benefit from the students' activities. In the case of our pilot, which was the course of international politics, this task was even more challenging because you have to wonder who can benefit from my course, who can benefit from knowledge in international politics. My answer was first, ordinary people who may benefit from articles published by my students in the local newspaper and from public events organized within my course. Second, high school students, because they can understand what we discuss in class, that is, what international politics is about, and can make better choices for the university future. Third, associations working in the field of international cooperation, which often have projects in conflict-torn countries. After identifying the stakeholders for your course, it is necessary to identify what are their interests. In the case of the Parma pilot, the benefit for ordinary people and school students were evident, a better knowledge of what happens around the world, while associations may have visibility and therefore increase their funding. So the main problem was how to involve all those people in my course. My decision was to cut most of the theory and start from real work case studies, which usually sound more appealing for people. It was a kind of challenge for me, but basically I was able to achieve what I wanted. Well, you know, the academic world is also known as the ivory tower, a place in which professors lock themselves away to carry out activities unrelated to the real world. And if you want to do engaged learning, you have to tackle this stereotype and show that what you teach has an impact on the real world. In order to connect the academic world and the local civil society, the easiest way is to approach people who tend to bridge this gap, as I did. I got in contact with people who work in international cooperation within my university and asked them to introduce the project to possible stakeholders, to explain them what engaged learning is about and what are its main benefits. So basically, I took advantage of the experience of academic people already working with the local associations and asked them to help me. I guess this is the core meaning of teaching designed with the features of engaged learning. Well, engaged learning is time consuming. The time you spend on planning the course, in the case of engaged learning, is just a residual part of the whole expenditure of the time that one has to spend on the course design. Indeed, a very substantial part of the time has to do with building relationships with the stakeholders in order to get them involved. It is essential to establish a constructive dialogue that may allow you to understand how the stakeholders can be involved, what are their expectations in relation to the project, and address their uncertainties and hesitations, which may be the result of past experiences they had with the university. As said, engaged learning is time-consuming, but the time devoted to building those synergies is not wasting time, and actually it can produce good outcomes. Indeed, the university can represent an exceptional sounding board for voices that usually do not find leader space to advertise their activities, precisely because the university is an acknowledged institution and can therefore give them visibility. The planning of an engaged learning project is exciting, engaging, and stimulating. The amount of ideas from which you draw inspiration to implement all the activities makes this phase really interesting. Under this view, the risk you face when you plan your course is not being able to consider all the variables that can influence the actual implementation of your project. Indeed, when you carry out your project, it is easy to realize that you have been too ambitious in your planning, and this may lead to frustration because you feel that you are going away from your original idea. However, we know that academics are flexible and adaptable, and so the exercise that you do is to basically scale down your expectation as soon as the project is not going as you expect, adapting them in relation to the situation, basically. In other words, engaged learning is about adapting to the situation and to all the unexpected circumstances that you have to face. It is about analyzing the context day by day, monitoring the entire process, adapting to the situation, and addressing all the problems that you have to face. This may result in a good implementation, even if what is realized is not entirely consistent with your original plan. No matter how hard and well you have worked to design your course and how much you expect to see your prediction come true, you may have to face unexpected situations, even of a trivial nature, and that have the power to destabilize your expectation and cast doubt on your abilities. My suggestion is be patient and try to solve every problem. If you are overwhelmed by stress and discouragement, which is normal when dealing with something new, the risk is that you are not able to frame the problem in the right context. For example, if the problem is an unexpected response by students to a particular solicitation, such as their inability to meet a deadline or their lack of interaction, you have to understand what is the main cause of this reaction. Problems may be unexpected, but if you are patient, you will find a good way to address them. Well, when you do engaged learning, you really need student active participation, and if attendance is not compulsory, you may have some problems. Indeed, students are not always able to realize the opportunity offered by engaged learning. This is precisely the moment in which you have to find some way to foster student involvement. A good incentive for students may be ongoing evaluation, for example. I'm evaluating your performance day by day, and this means that your final exam will be reduced. Ongoing assessment allows students to feel a sense of gratification for their efforts and realize that what they do has an immediate impact. At the same time, active participation and ongoing evaluation increase the knowledge they get and their daily commitment. Of course, ongoing evaluation is time-consuming for professors, but monitoring students in their daily performance usually produces better results than traditional evaluation through a final exam. Needless to say, you must explain to students exactly what you expect from them, because this way of evaluating is not always perceived positively by students who may not fully understand your evaluation and consider it unfair or unjust. And of course, these apply only to small classes, because ongoing evaluation can be very difficult in the case of a large number of students. A second incentive that you can give to foster student participation is to explain that their daily involvement and commitment allow the acquisition of soft skills, that is, the personal abilities that are usually acquired beyond the simple transmission of notions, and that enrich their curriculum. You have to start from the assumption that your class usually involves students with a different background, different skills and behaviors. Therefore, it is crucial for professors to mitigate the problems that may arise in class and in the discussion among students. When you interact with your students, you should act as an impartial mediator, striving to find the key to appease rivalries and give the message that the moment of confrontation in class is a sort of workout for students to acquire communication skills, to talk and understand each other in a non-confrontational way. It is also good to make clear to students that the skills they acquire will be crucial in their future job, when they will interact with people who are not always willing to engage in dialogue, but with whom they need to work to achieve their common goals. When I planned my course, I expected to have interaction and active participation in class. As said, this was not always the case, and I had to find out possible solution for this problem. While I was teaching, I realized that today there is a kind of generational gap between students and professors. Professors usually have a traditional conception of teaching, still tied almost exclusively to face-to-face classes and studying textbooks, while students today adopt new methods of communication and learning using IT, social networks and videos. The use of technology is an exceptional tool that makes it possible to match training with the habits and attitudes of young people. Leaving, for example, the possibility for students to use a chat room to engage in discussion may give good results, even if your original plan was to have a real debate in class. Of course, the use of a chat room requires the mediation of professors, since it is a very valid tool for interaction, but has the possible side effect of going off topic. Teacher mediation is more necessary than ever, because in a chat room it is not always possible to understand the tone of the message, so the risk of misunderstandings is real and considerable. However, this is a good way to be flexible and adaptable to an inconvenience that may arise during the course. Believing that you have planned an engaged learning course to perfection does not protect you from unforeseen events, which can and must be adjusted over time, involving students and the stakeholders. It is also true, however, that no matter how excellent the project is, it can always be improved with their suggestions. When you plan your course, you tend to focus only on very technical aspects. My experience was that engaged learning requires a continuous adaptability and planning, because it's interaction with both students and stakeholders that gives you new ideas and insights. Flexibility in accepting changes in your original plan is fundamental for professors and allows them to take inspiration to improve even the best original project that they had in mind.